Ethan sat alone in his small room, the faint hum of the colony's life support systems echoing around him. Outside, the sky of the human settlement shimmered with the soft glow of distant stars, the kind of sight that always reminded him how small humanity really was in the vast universe. He loved that view, even if it made him feel insignificant sometimes. He had always been fascinated by space and the unknown, and it was what led him to become an engineer on this remote colony. Most of the time, the work was simple: maintaining machinery, checking circuits, and keeping the life support systems running. But it was quiet here, almost too quiet, and tonight felt different. Ethan had been working late, repairing a minor malfunction in the colony's oxygen recycling unit. He wiped sweat from his brow and leaned back in his chair, letting the chair creak under his weight. Outside, a soft wind stirred through the small air vents, making the room feel alive. He reached for his tablet, ready to log the repair, when a strange sensation made him freeze. It was subtle at first, a shift in the air, like someone had entered without making a sound. He frowned and looked around, expecting a colleague or a security drone. The room was empty. Then he saw her. She was standing near his desk, her presence calm and natural, as if she had been there all along. Ethan's first thought was that he had imagined her. The room was small, cramped even, and the lights above flickered just slightly, casting shadows that danced across the walls. But she was real. Her hair was long and silvery, catching the faint light and making it shimmer. Her skin had a subtle glow, and her eyes were changing colors like the stars outside, shifting from soft blue to deep violet. Ethan blinked and took a cautious step back. Who are you?" His voice sounded louder than he expected in the quiet room. The woman tilted her head slightly as if she were studying him with interest. "I am Lyra," she said softly. Her voice was melodic, soothing in a way that immediately made Ethan feel calmer. "I've been waiting for you." Ethan's brow furrowed. "Waiting for me? What do you mean? How did you even get in here?" Lyra didn't answer directly. Instead, she moved closer to his workstation, her fingers brushing over the controls like she understood them perfectly. Ethan noticed that her touch was precise, almost delicate, but there was a power behind it that made the circuits respond instantly. Something about her was uncanny, more advanced than anything he had seen before. "You shouldn't be here," Ethan said cautiously, though curiosity overrode his fear. "The colony has security. If anyone saw you, they wouldn't see me." Lyra interrupted, her voice calm. "Not yet. That's not why I am here." She turned to him fully, her eyes settling on his. "I'm here because you need help and you cannot see the danger yet." Ethan swallowed hard. He had worked with AI systems, robots, and even some exploratory alien probes. But nothing in his experience could explain this. "Danger? What are you talking about?" Lyra's gaze softened. "Soon you will understand. But for now, trust me. I am here to guide you." Ethan wanted to argue, to insist that she leave immediately, but something in her presence stopped him. It wasn't just her calmness or her beauty. It was a feeling deep inside him, a strange certainty that she belonged here somehow, even if it made no logical sense. He took a cautious step toward her. "Guide me? In what way?" Lyra smiled faintly, almost wistfully. "In ways only humans can understand. Your kind has potential more than you realize. That is why I am here." Ethan's mind raced. He had always believed humans were capable, but he had never considered that an alien could recognize it in such a personal way. He had studied alien cultures from a distance, watched their technology and intelligence, and often felt small in comparison. Yet here was someone acknowledging him, acknowledging humanity in a way that felt real and immediate. "You're not like any alien I've ever read about," Ethan said slowly. "You're different." "I am different," Lyra admitted, "and I need you to see your own difference as well." She stepped closer to the equipment Ethan had been working on, her hands hovering over a set of tools as if she could sense what was wrong without touching them. "This unit is malfunctioning. I can fix it faster than you could, but I will need your help to stabilize it for the colony's safety." Ethan hesitated. Part of him wanted to refuse, but another part, a curious, adventurous part he had always tried to ignore, urged him forward. "Fine, but you do it my way. I don't know who sent you or why, but I can't have the colony alarmed." Lyra's smile widened. "Agreed." They worked in silence, her movements precise and elegant, his careful hands following her guidance. It was strange, working with someone who seemed both familiar and unknown. As they finished repairing the unit, Ethan realized he hadn't felt fear during the process, only a sense of partnership, as if he had been waiting for this collaboration all his life. When the repair was complete, Lyra stepped back and studied the machine. "It is ready," she said. "But this is only the beginning." "You will see soon enough," Ethan frowned. "See what?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked at him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "Humans are underestimated," she said finally. "Many believe your kind is simple, predictable, even weak. They do not see what I see. You have the strength to change what others think, to survive where others fail. That is why I came to you." Ethan felt a mix of confusion and pride. You think humans are special?" Lyra nodded. "Among the stars, yes. And among the challenges you will face, you will need to remember that." Before Ethan could respond, a sudden alert flashed on his console. Red lights blinked across the room, signaling a malfunction in the colony's energy grid. He cursed under his breath. "Not now." Lyra's expression shifted from calm to focused. "We need to act quickly. You can guide the energy flow and I can stabilize the systems. Together we can prevent a shutdown." Ethan felt a surge of determination. Somehow, despite everything, he trusted her. They moved together to the control panel, Lyra's fingers flying over the interface with supernatural precision, his own hands working instinctively to adjust circuits and reroute energy. It was chaotic, tense, and exhilarating all at once. As the final override sequence completed, the lights in the room steadied, the hum of the colony returning to normal. Ethan leaned back, panting. That actually worked. "I didn't think we could fix it this fast." Lyra smiled faintly. "Humans are capable of more than they realize. You just needed a little guidance." Ethan looked at her, still trying to comprehend everything. "Why me? Why now? Why this colony?" Lyra's eyes softened. "You are ready, and timing is everything. There are forces at work that most humans do not see. I cannot tell you everything yet, but you will understand soon. For now, trust yourself and trust me." Ethan nodded slowly, a mix of unease and excitement stirring within him. Something about this moment felt monumental, as if the universe had shifted slightly, placing him on the edge of something incredible. Hours passed in quiet conversation. Ethan asked questions, and Lyra answered some, leaving others as mysteries. She shared knowledge about distant star systems, subtle hints about galactic threats, and insights into technologies humans had not yet discovered. All the while, she moved with an ease and familiarity that felt strangely comforting, almost like she had been part of his life in ways he couldn't yet remember. By the time the colony's automated night shift drone made its rounds, Ethan realized he had learned more tonight than in months of studying alone. And though he had no idea what the future held, one thing was clear. Nothing would ever feel the same again. As he finally settled into his small bed, Lyra stood at the edge of the room, watching him with those shifting, luminous eyes. "Sleep now," she said softly. "Tomorrow your world will begin to change." Ethan closed his eyes, his mind racing with possibilities, fear, and excitement. Outside, the stars continued their silent journey across the sky, distant and eternal. But tonight, for the first time, they felt close, like witnesses to something extraordinary beginning right in his own room. And in that quiet, lonely room on the edge of human space, Ethan knew one thing with absolute certainty. Lyra had not simply walked into his life. Somehow she had always belonged there. The next morning, Ethan woke to the soft hum of the colony. Light filtered through the small window of his room, painting silver patterns across the floor. Lyra was already awake, sitting on the edge of his desk, her eyes following every movement he made. She seemed calm, almost serene, yet there was an intensity in her gaze that made Ethan feel both curious and cautious. "Good morning," she said, her voice gentle but clear. Ethan rubbed his eyes and stretched. "Good morning. You've been up for a while, haven't you?" Lyra smiled faintly. "Time is different for me. I don't sleep as humans do, but I wanted to observe. You work best when you are rested, and I needed to understand how you think." Ethan blinked, unsure how to respond. "Observe me?" he asked, frowning. "Why would you do that?" "Because understanding is important," she said simply. "Your mind works differently than any other species I have studied. You see possibilities where others see limits. That is why you are special." Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had never considered himself extraordinary. Most days he felt like just another engineer in a quiet, faraway colony. Yet here was someone, a stranger in every sense, telling him he was unique. He shook his head, trying to focus on practical matters. Special or not, we have work. There are systems to monitor. The colony isn't going to fix itself. Lyra nodded and followed him out of the room. As they walked through the narrow corridors, Ethan noticed how effortlessly she moved, almost as if the hallways were made for her. The other colonists passed them, not seeming to notice her presence. She didn't draw attention, yet she had an aura that made people glance in her direction. Ethan found himself glancing too, though he tried to act casual. They arrived at the control hub where monitors displayed the status of life support, energy grids, and security systems. Ethan immediately went to his workstation, checking the latest reports. Most systems were stable, but something caught his eye. A minor fluctuation in the energy flow near the colony's outer perimeter. "I noticed this last night," Lyra said, standing beside him. "It is small, but it could become a problem if ignored." Ethan frowned. "I didn't see any alerts. It's probably a minor glitch." Lyra shook her head. "It is more than a glitch. It is interference. Someone or something is testing the colony." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "Testing? You mean like an attack?" "Not yet," Lyra replied. "But you must prepare for possibilities. I am here to guide you, but your actions will make the difference. Humans have a way of turning challenges into victories, even when others cannot see it coming." Ethan was both alarmed and fascinated. He had dealt with malfunctions before, but this was different. The implication that someone or something was observing the colony sent a shiver down his spine, and yet he felt a strange reassurance in Lyra's presence. "I don't know what I can do," he admitted. "I'm just an engineer. I fix things. I don't fight battles." Lyra's eyes softened. "You may not fight battles as soldiers do, but your mind is a weapon. Your ability to see solutions and act quickly is something even my kind cannot replicate. That is why you are important." Ethan took a deep breath and turned back to the monitors. "All right," he said, determination building in his chest. "What should we do first?" Lyra gestured to the screens. "First, we analyze the interference. I can assist, but your decisions will guide the process. Watch carefully, see what others might overlook." For the next several hours, they worked together. Ethan watched in awe as Lyra interacted with the systems. Her fingers moved over the controls with a precision he could not match, but she did not dominate the process. Instead, she guided him, pointing out patterns and anomalies he might have missed. "What is this?" Ethan asked, pointing to a series of small spikes in the energy data. "That is a test," Lyra explained. "The rogue sensors are probing the colony's defenses. They want to see how systems respond, what weaknesses exist. Your understanding of these responses will give you an advantage." Ethan studied the data, trying to connect the dots. "So, they want us to react in a predictable way?" "Yes," Lyra said. "But humans are rarely predictable. That is your strength. You think beyond patterns. That is why I am here. Together we can counteract their probes and prepare for what comes next." Ethan nodded slowly. He began to feel a spark of confidence he had never experienced before. Working with Lyra was like seeing the world in a new way. He could sense patterns, anticipate outcomes, and even improvise solutions that he would have dismissed before. As the hours passed, they began implementing changes to the colony's systems, creating subtle adjustments that would make the interference less effective. Lyra observed quietly, offering guidance when necessary but letting Ethan lead. By mid-afternoon, they had stabilized the affected systems. Ethan leaned back in his chair, exhausted but exhilarated. "We did it," he said, a hint of disbelief in his voice. "I didn't think it was possible." Lyra smiled, her eyes glowing softly. "It is possible because you are capable. Humans have the ability to adapt, to overcome challenges in ways others cannot predict. Remember this, Ethan, it will be important." Ethan looked at her, still trying to process everything. "Why are you helping me? Why risk being here if it's dangerous?" Lyra's expression grew serious. "Because humans matter. You matter. There are forces in the galaxy that do not understand your potential. I am here to ensure that you and your people have a chance to show them." Ethan's mind raced. He had always dreamed of space adventures, of meeting aliens and exploring new worlds, but he had never imagined being thrust into something like this. And yet, despite the fear, he felt a growing excitement. For the first time, He felt like he had a purpose beyond repairing machines and maintaining systems. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden alert from the colony's security network. A small unmarked vessel had been detected near the outer perimeter. Ethan's heart raced. "What is that?" he asked. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "A reconnaissance probe. Someone is testing the colony more directly now. We need to monitor it closely." Ethan moved to the observation deck where the cameras displayed a sleek, angular ship drifting silently in space. It was unlike any human design he had seen, with a shimmering hull that seemed to blend with the surrounding stars. "They're scouting," Ethan said, his voice tense. "They're checking us out before something bigger." Lyra nodded. "Yes, and you will need to act quickly if they attempt an intrusion. But remember, you are not alone. I will guide you, and your creativity will make the difference." Ethan swallowed hard, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. This was more than a test of skill. It was a test of character, intuition, and courage. And in that moment he realized something crucial. Lyra had chosen him for a reason. Not because he was the strongest or the smartest, but because he could think in ways that others could not. The hours passed with careful observation, adjustments to the colony's systems, and continuous analysis of the probe's movements. Ethan and Lyra worked seamlessly, their collaboration building a rhythm that felt natural and almost effortless. Despite the tension, Ethan felt a sense of calm he had never experienced in a crisis before. As night fell again on the colony, Ethan sat in his quarters, reviewing the data from the day. Lyra sat across from him, quiet but attentive. "You are learning quickly," she said softly. "Tomorrow will test you further, but today proves you can rise to the challenge." Ethan nodded, feeling a mixture of pride and apprehension. He had learned more in a single day with Lyra than he had in months alone, and yet he could sense that this was only the beginning. "Why did you pick me?" he asked finally, unable to resist the question. Lyra's eyes softened, and she looked at him with a kind of intensity that made him uneasy and curious at the same time. "Because humans have potential that others cannot see. You are the type who can adapt, who can survive, who can change the outcome when others fail. I saw that in you before you even understood it yourself." Ethan felt a rush of determination. "Then I won't let you down," he said firmly. Lyra's smile was faint but genuine. "I do not doubt it." As he lay down to sleep, Ethan thought about the day's events. The strange appearance of Lyra, the unexplained interference, and the sudden appearance of the alien probe. It all felt like pieces of a larger puzzle. And deep inside he knew that whatever was coming, he would not face it alone. The stars outside his window twinkled quietly, distant and eternal, but tonight they seemed closer than ever. And somewhere in the vastness of space beyond the colony's perimeter, someone or something was watching. But for the first time, Ethan didn't feel afraid. He had Lyra by his side, and together they would face whatever the galaxy had in store. And in that quiet, lonely room, Ethan realized that the adventure had only just begun. The colony woke to the soft hum of machinery, its systems running smoothly after Ethan and Lyra's careful adjustments the day before. For a brief moment, it seemed as if the interference had stopped and the alien probe had vanished. Ethan allowed himself a small sigh of relief, though a part of him remained uneasy. He knew that calm rarely lasted long in the vastness of space. Lyra was already at the control hub when he arrived. She stood beside the central monitor, her glowing eyes scanning the data streams with a focus that made Ethan feel both impressed and slightly nervous. "Good morning," she said, her voice calm but urgent. "We have much to do today. The situation is becoming clearer, but it is also more dangerous." Ethan frowned. "More dangerous? How so?" She gestured to the screen, where a series of subtle energy fluctuations appeared along the colony's perimeter. "The probe you saw yesterday was only the beginning. Someone or something is gathering information. They are preparing. The colony is a test, and the test is not yet complete." Ethan's heart raced. "So they're coming back?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, and when they do, they will not send a probe alone. You must be ready." Ethan felt a wave of apprehension, but also a strange excitement. For the first time in his life, he felt that his skills mattered in ways that went beyond machines and systems. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. "Observe, analyze, and anticipate," Lyra said. "Your mind works differently than mine or any other species I have encountered. That is why you are critical in this situation. Humans have an ability to improvise, to act unpredictably. That is your greatest strength. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. All right, I'll do my best. They spent the morning monitoring the perimeter, analyzing the energy signatures and communication channels. Lyra guided Ethan, pointing out subtle patterns and anomalies he might have overlooked. Slowly, a picture began to form. The interference was deliberate, designed to probe the colony's defenses and understand its vulnerabilities. They're studying our systems, Ethan said, leaning over the console. They want to know where we're weak. Yes, Lyra said. And they will use that knowledge if we allow it. That is why we must act before they make their next move. Ethan's fingers flew over the controls, rerouting energy flows, adjusting sensor alignments, and reinforcing weak points in the colony's defenses. Lyra moved beside him, her hands hovering over the controls, occasionally guiding him with subtle gestures. Together they formed a rhythm, a team working seamlessly to protect the settlement. Hours passed and Ethan began to feel the strain. The colony's systems were complex, and even with Lyra's guidance, the task was exhausting. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was at play, something that went beyond simple attacks or sabotage. By late afternoon, Lyra called a pause. You need rest, she said softly. Your mind will perform better if you are not exhausted. Ethan shook his head. I can't stop now. We need to stay alert. Lyra studied him carefully. I understand. But humans are not machines. You have limits, and pushing beyond them can make you vulnerable. That is something you must remember. Ethan nodded reluctantly. All right, a short break then. As they stepped away from the control hub, Ethan noticed movement on the observation screens. A second vessel had appeared near the colony's outer edge, larger and more angular than the first probe. It was silent, drifting in the void, but its presence was unmistakable. They're testing us more directly now, Lyra said, her voice calm but tense. This is no longer reconnaissance alone. They are preparing for intrusion. Ethan's stomach tightened. Intrusion? You mean an attack? Lyra shook her head. Not exactly an attack, not yet. They are probing, seeking weaknesses, evaluating how the colony and its inhabitants respond. But if we make mistakes, it could escalate into something far more serious. Ethan glanced at the monitors, trying to make sense of the patterns. What kind of weaknesses? Everything, Lyra replied. Energy distribution, life support, communication, human behavior. They are learning. That is why your insight is so important. They expect predictable responses, but humans are rarely predictable. Ethan felt a surge of determination. He had spent years maintaining systems, studying patterns, and solving problems. Now all that experience mattered more than ever. He turned back to the monitors, focusing on the data, searching for anything that could give them an advantage. Lyra observed silently, her presence a steadying force. Notice how the vessel adjusts its course slightly after each energy shift, she said. They are watching our responses closely. If we can anticipate their moves, we can control the situation. Ethan leaned closer, tracing the patterns with his finger. So we need to make them think we are weaker than we are? Not weaker, Lyra corrected. Unpredictable. Humans survive because we cannot always predict your choices. That is why you are critical. Your creativity will be our advantage. For hours they worked, devising subtle adjustments and countermeasures to confuse the alien vessel. Ethan realized that this was unlike anything he had done before. It wasn't just repairing systems or following protocols. It was strategy, improvisation, and thinking several steps ahead. And for the first time, he felt fully alive. By evening, they had implemented a series of modifications that altered the colony's energy flow, created false sensor readings, and masked critical systems. The alien vessel appeared to respond, hesitating in its movements as if uncertain how to proceed. Ethan leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. We did it, he said, his voice trembling with excitement. I think we've slowed them down. Lyra's eyes glowed softly. Yes, you are learning quickly. But the challenge is far from over. Tomorrow the situation will escalate further. You must be ready. Ethan felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. He had accomplished something extraordinary, yet he knew this was only the beginning. The alien vessel was still out there, watching, waiting, testing. That night, as he lay in his small bed, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Lyra. She had come into his life so suddenly, so completely, and yet she felt familiar in a way he could not explain. Her presence was comforting, but it also carried a sense of urgency, a reminder that the galaxy was larger and more dangerous than he had ever imagined. He thought about the human potential she had praised, the unpredictability that made humans strong. For the first time, he felt a deep connection to something greater than himself. He understood that humans were capable of more than mere survival. They could adapt, innovate, and rise to challenges that others might fail against. In the quiet of the night, a subtle shift in the colony's systems caught his attention. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Ethan's heart quickened. Someone or something was testing them again. He sat up, reaching for his tablet. Lyra was already standing at the edge of the room, her glowing eyes focused on the data streams. "You are awake," she said, her voice calm. "Good. The situation is evolving. We must be vigilant." Ethan nodded, feeling a surge of determination. "I'm ready," he said. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it." Lyra's expression softened. "That is the spirit. Remember, humans survive because you think differently, because you adapt. You have the strength to overcome challenges that others cannot even comprehend. That is why you are important." Ethan felt a mixture of pride and responsibility. He knew that the days ahead would be difficult, that the alien presence was more than a simple threat. But for the first time, he felt truly capable, truly prepared to face whatever the universe had in store. Outside, the stars continued their silent journey across the sky, distant and eternal, but tonight they seemed closer, more alive. Ethan realized that this was only the beginning of a larger story, one in which humans could rise above expectations and prove their worth in the galaxy. And in the quiet of his room, with Lyra beside him, he understood something profound. The adventure was far from over, and the true challenge had only just begun. The alien vessel was out there and the galaxy was watching. But for the first time, Ethan felt that he and humanity could rise to the occasion. Tomorrow, he knew, would bring new tests, new dangers, and new opportunities to prove that humans were more than capable of surviving in a universe full of unknown threats. And with Lyra's guidance, he was determined to face them all. As he finally drifted into a restless sleep, Ethan felt a sense of purpose he had never known. Humans were unpredictable, adaptable, and capable of greatness, and in the coming days he would need every ounce of that strength to protect the colony, confront the unknown, and discover just how far humanity could reach among the stars. The morning light spilled into the colony, casting a soft glow on the metal walls and polished floors. Ethan was already awake, alert, and tense. The events of the previous days had left him on edge, but he felt more ready than ever. Lyra sat at the edge of his workstation, her posture relaxed yet alert, her glowing eyes scanning the energy readings across the monitors. She had been here through every step, guiding him, teaching him, and observing him in a way that made him feel both protected and inspired. "Good morning," Lyra said, her voice calm but carrying a subtle edge of urgency. "Today will test you in ways you cannot yet predict." Ethan rubbed his eyes and exhaled slowly. "I think I can handle it," he said, trying to sound confident even though the knot in his stomach told him otherwise. "Whatever they throw at the colony, we'll manage." Lyra's eyes softened. "Perhaps. But this is not just about managing systems. This is about anticipating, predicting responses, acting in ways that are not obvious. That is your strength, Ethan. That is what will make the difference." He nodded, swallowing the anxiety that threatened to overwhelm him. Over the past few days, he had learned to trust her guidance, to see the patterns she pointed out, and to understand that humans had something special: intuition, creativity, the ability to act when logic alone might fail. He felt that strength rising within him, a growing sense of confidence he had never known before. The colony's monitors flickered suddenly, drawing their attention. On the outer perimeter, another vessel had appeared, larger and more imposing than the previous probe. Its hull shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting the distant starlight. It moved deliberately, as if testing the colony's response. "They are escalating," Lyra said softly, her eyes narrowing. "This is no longer reconnaissance. They are probing, yes, but their next step will be more direct. They will test human resilience." Ethan felt his pulse quicken. "So they're coming for us?" Lyra shook her head slightly. "Not yet, but if we are not careful, they could escalate into something far more dangerous. That is why your judgment is critical. Humans are unpredictable, and that is why they have not yet attacked directly. Your creativity is our advantage." Ethan studied the vessel, tracing its slow, deliberate movements on the monitor. He realized that it was reacting to every minor adjustment the colony had made. The previous day's countermeasures had forced it to pause, but now it was adapting. It was learning. "We need a new plan," he said. "Something they won't expect." Lyra nodded. "Yes, and you will provide it. I can assist, but your insight will determine our success." For the next several hours, Ethan and Lyra worked together, devising a strategy that combined subtle technological adjustments with behavioral unpredictability. Ethan suggested rerouting power through secondary conduits while simulating minor malfunctions to confuse the vessel. Lyra added precision adjustments to the sensors, making it appear as if the colony's defenses were weaker than they actually were. "You see," Lyra said, her voice calm, "the key is to act in ways they cannot anticipate. Your mind can generate solutions they will not predict. That is the human advantage." Ethan nodded, feeling a surge of determination. He had spent his life solving problems, repairing systems, and improvising under pressure. But this was different. This was not just about machinery. It was about survival, strategy, and the delicate balance between caution and creativity. And for the first time, he realized that humans had an edge that even the most advanced alien technology could not overcome: intuition. As they implemented their plan, the vessel hesitated, its movements slow and cautious. Ethan watched with a mixture of relief and pride. "It's working," he said quietly. "They don't know what we're doing." Lyra smiled faintly. "Yes, but the real test is yet to come. Prepare yourself." Before Ethan could respond, the vessel suddenly changed course, moving directly toward the colony's outer shield. Alarms began to blare, and the lights flickered as the colony's automated systems detected the potential threat. Ethan's heart raced. "They are testing the defenses now," Lyra said calmly. "Do not panic. Follow the plan. Adapt if necessary." Ethan moved quickly, rerouting power and initiating the sequence they had practiced. Lyra's presence beside him was steadying, her glowing eyes providing a sense of calm focus amid the chaos. Together they monitored the vessel's approach, adjusting systems in real time, improvising when unexpected anomalies occurred. The vessel struck the colony's energy shields with a pulse of force, testing their resilience. Sparks danced across the monitors, but Ethan's adjustments held firm. The shields absorbed the impact and the vessel paused, seemingly assessing the results. "They expected us to fail," Lyra said softly, "but humans do not fail in ways others predict. You have turned their expectations against them." Ethan felt a surge of pride. He had never thought of himself as exceptional, but now he saw that his creativity, adaptability, and quick thinking had made a tangible difference. "We're doing it," he said, his voice filled with determination. "We're holding them off." The vessel pulsed again, sending a wave of energy toward the colony. Ethan quickly adjusted the secondary conduits, diverting power to reinforce the shields in the areas of impact. Lyra guided him, her hands hovering over the controls, adding precision and insight to his actions. The collaboration was seamless, a perfect balance of human intuition and alien expertise. Hours passed in a tense rhythm of observation, adjustment, and anticipation. The vessel continued its tests, probing the colony's defenses, but each time Ethan and Lyra responded with ingenuity and precision. Slowly, the vessel began to retreat, its movements cautious and hesitant. "They are learning," Lyra said quietly. "They now realize that the humans here are not predictable. That is why they are retreating for now. But this is only temporary. They will return." Ethan leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. "We did it," he said, his voice trembling with pride. "We held them off." Lyra studied him, her expression softening. "Yes, you did. And in doing so, you demonstrated what humans can accomplish when they trust their instincts and act creatively. That is why you are important, Ethan. That is why you matter." Ethan felt a mixture of pride and humility. He had faced something far beyond his expectations and emerged capable. He realized that humans were more than just survivors. They were innovators, problem solvers, and adaptable beings who could overcome challenges that seemed impossible. As the colony's systems returned to normal, Ethan and Lyra sat in the control hub, reviewing the data from the encounter. The vessel had retreated, but the evidence suggested it would return, likely with a larger force. Ethan knew that the next encounter would be even more dangerous. Lyra spoke quietly, her eyes glowing faintly. The next test will challenge you in ways beyond technical skill. It will test your courage, your judgment, and your ability to inspire others. You must be ready, Ethan nodded. I will be ready. I know I can do this with you. Lyra's smile was faint but genuine. I have no doubt. And remember, humans are special not because of strength alone, but because of the mind's ability to adapt. That is your greatest weapon. As night fell over the colony, Ethan walked to his quarters, exhausted but determined. The stars outside were distant and cold, but now they seemed closer, alive with possibilities. He understood that the vessel's retreat was temporary, and the true challenge lay ahead. But for the first time, he felt a sense of purpose and confidence that he had never experienced before. He thought about the events of the day, the precise adjustments, the rapid improvisations, the careful balance of observation and action. He realized that humans were capable of much more than they often believed. They were unpredictable, creative, and resilient. And in the vastness of space, those traits could make all the difference. As he settled into bed, Lyra appeared beside him, her glowing eyes soft in the dim light. Rest now, she said quietly. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but you are prepared. Humans have the ability to rise when others falter. That is why you are important, and that is why you will succeed. Ethan nodded, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and excitement. He closed his eyes, allowing sleep to take him, even as the distant stars continued their silent journey across the sky. He knew that the adventure was far from over, but he also knew that he was ready. Humans were capable of incredible things. He had seen it today, proven it with his own hands. And with Lyra's guidance, he was determined to meet the challenges that lay ahead, to protect the colony, and to discover the true extent of human potential among the stars. And somewhere in the void of space, beyond the colony's perimeter, the vessel lingered, observing, waiting, and preparing. But this time Ethan was ready. He had learned that humans could adapt, improvise, and survive. And when the next encounter came, he would prove it once again. The galaxy was vast, mysterious, and often dangerous. But Ethan no longer felt small or powerless. He had Lyra by his side, knowledge at his fingertips, and the unshakable confidence that humans could rise to any challenge, no matter how formidable. The first confrontation had ended, but the war of wits, strategy, and courage was only beginning, and Ethan knew deep in his heart that humans were not only capable, they were extraordinary. The colony woke to another quiet morning, but the tension in the air was thicker than ever. Ethan sat at his workstation staring at the monitors, eyes sharp, mind racing. After days of preparation, observation, and careful improvisation, he knew the final test was near. Lyra stood beside him, silent but alert, her glowing eyes fixed on the data streams that scrolled across the screens. The vessel has returned, she said quietly, her voice steady, and this time it is accompanied by two more. They are larger, faster, and more coordinated than before. The final test has begun. Ethan's chest tightened. He had learned to face challenges over the past days, but the thought of 3 advanced alien vessels approaching simultaneously was daunting. Yet deep inside he felt a confidence that had grown steadily since Lyra had first appeared in his life. Humans had a way of thinking differently, of turning challenges into opportunities. That was their strength. We can handle this, he said, determination coloring his tone. We've adapted before. We can do it again. Lyra nodded. Yes, but this will require everything you have learned. You must anticipate their moves, improvise when necessary, and trust your instincts. Humans are unpredictable. That is the edge you hold. Ethan's fingers flew over the controls as he began adjusting the colony's energy flows, rerouting power, and reinforcing key systems. Lyra's guidance was precise but unobtrusive, allowing him to act while offering subtle corrections and insights. Together they formed a rhythm that felt natural, almost effortless. The first vessel struck the outer shields with a pulse of energy. Sparks danced across the monitors, but Ethan's adjustments held firm. He quickly identified the points of stress, redistributing power and reinforcing weak areas. The second and third vessels followed, testing different systems simultaneously. Ethan worked tirelessly, analyzing patterns, predicting responses, and implementing countermeasures with precision. They expect us to respond predictably, Lyra said softly, watching the screens. But humans are rarely predictable. That is why we will prevail. Ethan nodded, feeling a surge of determination. He had never felt so alive, so focused. Every adjustment, every decision, every improvisation mattered. The vessels tested them relentlessly, but he remained calm, guided by instinct and reinforced by Lyra's subtle cues. Hours passed in a tense, rhythmic battle of observation and strategy. Ethan realized that the vessels were intelligent, adapting to each of his moves, but he had learned to think several steps ahead, anticipating their responses and countering them before they could react. Lyra's presence was steadying, a constant reminder that he was not alone. Together, they turned the colony into a fortress, not just of shields and energy, but of cleverness and adaptability. Then, just as Ethan began to feel exhaustion creeping in, the vessels launched a coordinated strike aimed at overwhelming the colony's defenses. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and the monitors displayed critical stress points. Ethan's heart raced, but he didn't panic. He knew what he had to do. "Lyra, I need your guidance," he said urgently. She nodded, her eyes glowing brighter. "Focus on the pattern, Ethan. See the flow. Anticipate the convergence. You have done this before. Trust yourself." Ethan scanned the monitors, analyzing the complex patterns of the incoming pulses. He noticed subtle inconsistencies in the vessel's timing, slight delays that revealed their weaknesses. With a steady hand, he rerouted power through secondary conduits, creating a buffer that absorbed the strikes. Simultaneously, he simulated malfunctions in non-critical systems to confuse the vessels, making it appear as though the colony was weaker than it truly was. The vessels hesitated, their movements faltering. Ethan adjusted the shields, reinforcing critical points while allowing minor, harmless fluctuations elsewhere to mislead their sensors. He could see the results immediately. The vessels pulled back slightly as if reconsidering their strategy. Lyra's eyes softened. "Yes, that is it. You are using your unpredictability. Humans can turn even disadvantage into strength. That is why you succeed where others would fail." Ethan felt a rush of pride. They had turned the tide. The vessels were now hesitant, unsure how to proceed against a colony that seemed both vulnerable and unbreakable at the same time. Every move Ethan made reinforced the perception that the colony's defenses were inconsistent, forcing the alien ships to act cautiously. Hours dragged on as the vessels continued their tests, but Ethan remained calm, focused, and adaptive. He anticipated every strike, improvised solutions, and responded in ways that no predictable opponent could counter. Lyra guided him subtly, her presence providing clarity and confidence. By late evening, the vessels began to retreat. Their pulses weakened, and their movements became hesitant, almost tentative. Ethan realized that their final test had failed. They could not predict, could not overcome, the cleverness of humans and the guidance of Lyra. "They are retreating," he said, exhaling a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "We did it?" Lyra smiled, her glowing eyes soft and warm. "Yes, you did it, Ethan. You demonstrated what humans can achieve when they trust their instincts, think creatively, and act with courage. That is your true strength." Ethan leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. He had faced an unprecedented threat and emerged victorious, not through sheer force, but through intelligence, adaptability, and intuition. He had learned that humans were capable of far more than they often believed, and that their greatest advantage lay not in technology alone, but in their creativity and unpredictability. Lyra moved closer, her eyes meeting his. "You have proven yourself not only to me, but to the universe. Humans are remarkable, and you, Ethan, are extraordinary." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. He had always thought of himself as ordinary, just another engineer on a distant colony. But now he understood that ordinary humans could accomplish extraordinary things when guided by intuition, creativity, and determination. "Thank you," he said softly, "for everything, for believing in me, for guiding me, for being here." Lyra's smile was gentle. "I did not create your strength. I merely helped you see it. You were capable all along. I only showed you the path." Ethan felt a deep sense of gratitude. He realized that humans, with their unpredictability and creativity, could face challenges that even the most advanced technology could not anticipate. And with allies like Lyra, they could achieve far more than they ever imagined. The stars outside the colony twinkled silently, distant and eternal, yet for the first time, Ethan felt connected to them in a profound way. The vessels had retreated, but the universe was vast, full of mysteries, dangers, and possibilities. And he knew that humans were ready. As the colony settled into quiet again, Ethan and Lyra walked through the corridors. The other colonists were unaware of the subtle but intense struggle that had unfolded, but Ethan knew the truth. Humanity had proven itself in a way that transcended mere survival. They had shown creativity, resilience, and courage. Lyra stopped beside him, her glowing eyes reflecting the faint light from the observation windows. "You have grown, Ethan, and so has the colony. But remember, the universe is vast and threats will come. What matters is not fear, but the ability to adapt, to think, and to act. That is the true measure of strength." Ethan nodded, feeling a quiet determination settle over him. "I understand. I will remember." She placed a hand gently on his shoulder, a gesture of acknowledgement and reassurance. "I have no doubt. You have learned well, and you will continue to grow. Humans are capable of remarkable things, and you have shown that today." Ethan felt a surge of pride and purpose. For the first time, he truly understood the potential within himself, within all humans. They were not just survivors, they were innovators, thinkers, and problem solvers, capable of facing challenges that no one else could. As night fell over the colony, Ethan sat by the observation window looking out at the vast expanse of stars. Lyra stood beside him, silent but present, her glowing eyes reflecting the infinite possibilities of the universe. "I never thought I could do this," he admitted softly, "but I feel different now, stronger, smarter, ready." Lyra smiled. "That is the power within you, and within all humans. You have faced a challenge that seemed impossible and emerged victorious. Remember this feeling, Ethan. It will guide you in the days ahead." Ethan nodded, a sense of calm and clarity settling over him. The threat had passed for now, but the lessons he had learned would remain. Humans had a way of overcoming challenges, of finding solutions where others saw only problems, of thriving even in the most uncertain circumstances. As he turned to leave, Lyra's voice stopped him. "Ethan." He looked back, meeting her gaze. "Remember," she said softly, "this is only the beginning. The universe is vast and your journey has only just started, but you are ready. You are human, and that is enough." Ethan smiled, feeling a profound sense of confidence and purpose. He understood now what Lyra had tried to show him all along. Humans were extraordinary not because of technology, weapons, or strength alone, but because of their ability to think, adapt, and persevere. And with that realization, he stepped forward, ready to face whatever the galaxy had in store, knowing that humans and he himself could rise to any challenge, no matter how impossible it seemed. The stars stretched endlessly before him, vast, mysterious, and full of potential, and for the first